Welcome back to the Green Revolution with Micah Dewey. Today we're going to look at a few different areas of what can be improved and what we can possibly do in the upcoming little while. We are looking today at something that is taken off over the last few weeks is Manitoba Covid numbers. And as you can tell just by looking at this graph here, let's see here. October 1st, we had a total of 1,777 cases. This is not right. Oh, that's how many there were on. No, that can't. Oh, that's how many were active that day? Weird. All right. So we have a total of 13,304 cases as of November 22nd. In the morning. So this is recorded on the Sunday. We recently we're up to 217 deaths and 10 more as of yesterday. But this all kind of kicked off last weekend, and we had 15 COVID-19 deaths reported in Manitoba, including 11 at Maples Long-Term Care Center. And there was a lot of press and a lot of news around this story because certain health ministers and conservatives in the Manitoba legislature were basically saying that the healthcare workers had everything that they needed. Well, it turns out that they'd been sent masks that were not medical masks, that they could not use in a medical environment, and the absolute gall of these people telling our healthcare workers that they need to do better. And all the while, Coop Winnipeg, or Coop Manitoba, I'm not exactly sure if it's Winnipeg or Manitoba. I'm assuming it's Manitoba, sorry. The Union for Healthcare Workers put out a statement saying that there were 3 healthcare workers available for 100 patients. And that has not been able to be increased because the provincial government has been spending money in other ways, including buying faulty equipment for their healthcare workers to use. This is absolutely insane, people. Like, I won't go into the topic for later right away, but I think it's just insane that we have this much inadequacy in our provincial government. But then to make it a little bit more interesting, in Steinbach, my hometown, we've got internet famous. Yay. We got internet famous because there was an anti-mask rally last weekend. And Louis Weiss, who is the Reeve for La Broquerie, basically the mayor, also participated in this. So you have a mayor, basically, from the town right next door, showing up in an anti-mask rally to make a speech. He was handed a $1,296 ticket, but that doesn't really make it any better, and it makes us all look terrible. And there were a lot of people online basically saying that, don't go to Steinbach, don't go to Steinbach, don't go to Steinbach. Well, there's another good reason not to go to Steinbach right now. We have 40% of COVID-19 tests are positive right now. This is posted one day after this. This was uploaded on Thursday. This was Friday. On Friday, we have 40% of COVID-19 tests in Steinbach are coming back positive. 40% test positivity rate. And we have idiots running around, not wearing masks, telling other people not to wear masks. And this is just before everything else gets crazy. There was also a anti-mask protest from the very same people that did it in Steinbach in Winnipeg yesterday, on Saturday, the 21st. Luckily, though, we had our very own Bud Knight. He is dressed up, full mask, full facial. and he is covered in armor made out of Bud Light recycled boxes, basically. He looks cool. Let's not lie about this. But the fact that people are still having to show up, there was one dude that showed up in Steinbach to counter protest. I was going to, but I was not feeling great, and I decided that would be a bad idea to go out. And the fact that we're having people, not the government, explicitly calling this shit out. Yes, Pallister did make a statement. Yes, Gertsen and Falk both made statements about how the anti-mask protests in Steinbach were terrible and that it shouldn't have happened. But at the same time, these are the same people pushing the same conspiracy theories that nothing is fundamentally wrong and that people are going to be okay. And then you wonder why 40% of tests are coming back positive, because people don't give a shit right now. That's just unfucking believable. All right, real quick, I'm just going to do a little bit of selfless promotion here. I have my Patreon set up, and I would love it for anybody, if they are enjoying this podcast or my writing that is available on Substack now, you can join my Patreon for $5 a month. That helps me just keep motivated to keep doing the podcast, make better videos, write more content, because there is a massive need for a lot of this over here right now, and we don't have anybody doing it. I'll show you. So basically, we've got my recent post. I had a fun little video from the Imagine Van Gogh that's behind. We have some memes, some fun pictures. So yeah, come on, check it out. If you like it, be sure to subscribe and join as a Patreon. That would be amazing, and you would make my day. Now, let's go on to the next topic here. The next topic is related to the NDP and their wealth tax that they had presented to Parliament. And unsurprisingly, it failed. According to Canadian Dimension, more than 3/4 of Canadians support a tax on the very wealthy. And the proposal was a 1% tax on individual wealth over $20 million. The only people that voted in favor of this were the NDP, the Green Party, and one Liberal MP. And it's exactly. So the NDP proposed a new tax on the super rich and pandemic profiteers like Amazon and Walmart. 292 of the people's representatives voted against it. It went 27 yeas, 292 nays. So this 1% wealth tax on $20 million of wealth was too much for the Liberals and the Conservatives and even the Bloc to vote on, even though this would arguably help the Bloc as well. I think that they probably chose that there wasn't a chance it was going to pass, so they were going to vote against it to avoid those questions later, which politically I understand. But if you're serving your constituents, that's nothing you should ever do. I don't care if you're a conservative. I don't care if you're a liberal. I don't care if you're a Bloc member. I don't care if you're NDP. I don't care if you're Green or, God forbid, in the future, a PPC member. If there is a tax, if there is a proposal that will help your constituents more than it hurts them, you do it. It's really not that hard. And I don't understand why this. I mean, I do understand why. I tweeted about it earlier. It's party constituency. You have to stay with your own party. You can't vote against your own leader in Canadian government. Party discipline. It doesn't happen very often. There was one Liberal member who voted against the party. One. And I know at least a handful of these people have been specifically talking about a pharmacare plan, about a wealth tax, about basic income even. But yet they're voting against it when it actually shows up. This made me lose a lot of respect for Nathaniel Erickson Smith, who has been with UBI Works. He's been with a lot of these different organizations. And then when it comes down to it, he votes against it. And he did. Because that would hurt his sitting in a party caucus. Absolutely disgusting. Don't do that. All right. I'm going to move on from this. But there's one more little... there's one more small thing we should look at here. So, in a survey from Abacus, they asked, do you support a wealth tax? And they said 77% supported it. 13% opposed, and 11% said they don't know. So, okay, I can 11% of people just don't know. That's fine. I would rather you not know. But here's how they voted. NDP Wealth Tax vote, 16 November. One independent voted yes. That was the Liberal, I can't remember what their name was, I'm sorry. 3 Greens voted yes, those are all the Greens. 23 NDPs voted yes, which is all of them minus 1 who was absent. All 30 Bloc Québécois voted nay. 117 Conservatives voted nay. 145 Liberals voted nay. With 77% support, MPs that represent like 84 to 85% of the population voted against it. If that's not something that can be changed, I have no hope for national political expectations anymore. I just don't have any expectations of what they're ever going to pass, because when you have something this highly supported, 77 to 13 with 11 flippy floppy, even if you said all 11% opposed it, putting it at 24, that's still ridiculous. It's 77% approval. Like, find another thing that has 77% approval in Canada. Very, very, very few things. Maybe hockey should be played in the winter. Like, that's probably something that would have 77% support. Tim Hortons is a fundamentally Canadian company. Like, there's a few little things that would be like, yeah, that has very high support. But when it comes to something this fundamental, a 1% tax, and that's nothing, by the way. I was advocating for 8% over 10 million, and they were going for 1% over 20 million. So, I mean, a 1% wealth tax isn't that much. It really isn't. And that's not like I think there should be 100% wealth tax over $20 million of yearly earnings. If you're making more than $20 million a year, you made it. You did it. That's it. If you're getting more from that than from your employer, you're doing it wrong, man. Like, that's just how I see that. I want to go back to this story. It's a little bit older, but it's something that I've talked about, but it also came up with this NDP vote on basic income. With this vote on the wealth tax, and that is the fact that the CERB program should be morphed into a basic income program, aka Motion 46 that NDP MP Leah Gazan has not put forward officially, but it has received the votes to be put in front of Parliament. And I think it will happen if we can get any more support. And part of me thinks that maybe politically they might be waiting a little bit to see what happens in the next month as far as the COVID response is concerned over the winter, our second wave, and how bad it gets. Because this is something that I think will only come up once or twice. I don't think it's going to be something that we can continually go over and over and over again, because eventually people are going to get tired of asking for this. And notice how I said asking. There will be a point, maybe not this year, maybe not 5 years from now, but there will be a point in Canada where people no longer are asking for a basic income and are demanding a basic income. And what I mean by that could go in any different area that you want. That could mean something as simple as we're not voting for somebody who will not support this. That could go as far as we're taking this company over and there's nothing you can do about it. because otherwise we will all work or will cause some massive destruction of property. There will be those kinds of situations that come up in the next few years. And so I think waiting to get the right time to push this motion forward is vitally important. It has to come at the exact right moment. And while millions of Canadians would say that moment was yesterday, I think politically it's very, very dangerous based on what happened in this last vote on the wealth tax that should be easily passed by any competent government. So if you're actually asking for help for people, it's going to be a lot harder. And that's what I'm worried about. And there may be a day where, in the not so distant future, where this becomes a will the government stand or not. Where the NDP will put forward a provision if there's any way. And I've been noticing Aaron O'Toole kind of moving this way a little bit, trying to go towards that more populist, those worker rights. He's been talking about unions kind of in a very NDP manner. If there is ever a situation where the NDP and the Conservatives can come together to break this government or pass basic income, I'm so down for that. I am so down for that. Some good news, kind of. The federal NDP eye a basic income program in Newfoundland and Labrador. But the doubts still linger about the willpower to actually create it. There has been a motion passed on October 28th in the Newfoundland House of Assembly to explore a basic income program, which is super awesome. Ontario had one, then it got destroyed when Ford came in. Manitoba had one back in the 70s and 80s that kind of just got thrown under the rug. That's kind of what brought this all back together again. And the biggest thing that they're saying is that the federal system has to be part of it. That's where the money is. Provinces generally don't have enough in the form of like solid resources to actually be able to give out this kind of money, which is really disappointing. But it does happen, and hopefully this does take over. They're saying Harris says members of his riding, some of whom attended Friday's town hall, are skeptical about whether basic income can coexist with current social security such as childcare or disability supports. He says, I think the need is out there. There are people calling out for a just economic system. It's an idea which is now very much under the microscope. A local pilot could also fuel interest in a Canada-wide experiment, said Jagmeet Singh, which is 100% correct. And this is something we should really be pushing for. If we can get one province or territory to get this, let's do it. Let's get it moving, because it's going to be a success. Unless if they just completely fuck up the implementation, it's going to be a success. It's going to show massive success, and then the federal government's going to have to make that decision of, are we going to stand or are we going to fall? Okay, let's move on to the next topic here. The next topic is related to what's happening in Ottawa right now. So was this Friday morning or Saturday morning? 21st. Saturday morning. On Saturday morning in Ottawa, there was a group of land back protests, BLM, and other protests, social justice protests taking place in Ottawa. Well, they were supposed to have a meeting over the death of a gentleman named Abdel Rahim, and the police showed up and just arrested protesters, 12 of them, at like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. And this is about the land back protests. This is about BLM protests. This is just the government or the Ottawa City Police Department. Sorry, it wasn't RCMP this time. This is OPS, Ottawa Police Service, going in and arresting peaceful protests for no reason. And we've seen more protests and more protests and more protests, and they are going to continue to happen until something fundamentally changes. The people were finally released in the afternoon, looks like 2:30-ish, and they charged 12 people with mischief. And this is what they happened. So they were talking about, we have a meeting with the city council officials and the Ottawa Police Board to discuss our demands. We'll still be occupying Laurier and Nicholas tomorrow, so please show up and await updates. On the same day that they, or I guess the day before, they had agreed to a meeting with city councilors and the police services. That same night, OPS came in and arrested them. So I don't know what to say about that. That's just unbelievable. And now I'm going to get into one of my little pet projects I've been trying to get trending, at least in Manitoba, over the last few days. This is the Resign Brian hashtag. Hashtag Resign Brian. And we've been looking at a lot of different statistics related to COVID and a lot of his, his reactions and his expectations about what's going to happen. This team up, let's go team kind of thing isn't really working. So we just have such a high rate. We have no real restrictions up until Friday, where they finally started shutting down everything again. It's still not shut down. Everything is still at 25% capacity, up to 100 people, or up to 100 people, whichever comes first. What? So you can have like a gas station, and even though it says 25%, it's up to the individual businesses to restrict that. So if they say, well, it's 25% or 100 people, I think it might have actually gone down to 50. Sorry, 25% or 50 people. Well, if you can pack 50 people into a gas station, that's up to them whether or not they're going to change the rules or not. Oh my goodness, sorry, hiccup. I made a fun little meme. It was basically like, if Brian Ballister was a football coach, he'd be Dan Quinn, up 28-3 and blows the lead. Because we had COVID under control, and then he opened up everything, and now we're back to this same shitty situation. They are no longer confirming or denying school exposures. The provincial government that is in charge of schools is no longer reporting school cases. So we have Manitoba School Exposures on Twitter at COVID School, who is individually taking reports from different news sources, different individuals, and trying to get close to accurate numbers. And on Friday, we had a total of 662 schools that were confirmed, that they could actually confirm have had a COVID case. Sorry, these numbers are estimate of total school cases by region. Sorry. So it's not 100%, it's not 100% accurate, but it's pretty close based on their tracking from what we've seen from other things. And it's just like, can we get somebody who actually gives a shit about people to do something about this? Apparently not yet. All right, that was my little fun thing for the week. Now let's look at something that is... it's been taken a little bit of criticism, mostly from people like me from the left. Not really from... I haven't actually really seen any major opposition to this from the right, which is actually kind of telling if you look at it. So Justin Trudeau on the 19th announced that net zero emissions by 2050. He says, it's ambitious, but it's possible. It's necessary, and it's exactly what we're going to do. For more on our plan to support jobs and build a cleaner future and more competitive economy, tune in now. And this was like his link. Here's the problem. 2050 is just too late. It's just too late. They need to end the spending on oil and gas, the subsidies that are going to Alberta and Saskatchewan and BC that are taking over people's lives, taking their land, destroying the environment. Like, we need the biggest recovery plan of all time in Canada, and we're just not doing it. He's getting praised by Shell, and people on the right are like, well, Shell's now charging an extra 2 cents a liter for carbon offsets. And I'm like, come on, guys, 2 cents? 2 cents. That's what we're talking about right now. We're talking about 2 cents a liter. So that might cost you when I was driving my Jeep, I'd put about $400 worth of gas in it for $450 every 2 weeks. So let's call it $1,000 a month in gas. If I was putting $1,000 a month in gas into my Jeep and 2 cents a liter, basically $1 a liter, 2%, well, 2% of $1,000 is $20. So you're basically taking my $1,000 of gas into making it $1,020, and people are losing their minds over that. And it's not like there's not other gas stations that are going to undercut that. Like, fuck off. So, I just want to make it clear. I have quit driving my Jeep. We bought an electric car last year, and it's fantastic. The only thing I don't like about it really is the range on like longer trips, because then you do have to find a spot to stop and plug in and charge, and that is a little bit more obsequious than the current system with gas stations. And this is something that I don't understand why the Liberals in their quest for higher GDP are not just pushing for a company like Tesla to come to Canada, or purchasing or like buying outright ChargePoint, who just went up for sale. Like, how are you guys not buying into all this technology and are still continuing to like just hold up these oil and gas companies? Like, if they're gonna fail, let them fail. Stop pushing more money into their pockets. Stop subsidizing gasoline prices. It's really that simple. If you want to keep restrictions away from diesel right now, so that transport and trucks and all that, everything that needs to be shipped isn't insanely impacted, okay, I could live with that right now. But the fact that you are just basically doing nothing, which is exactly what CTV says. Newly proposed federal legislation would legally bind the government to set multiple targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions over the next 30 years, but the only penalty for failing to meet them would be to admit so publicly. There would also be more than a decade before the first assessment is due, with no plans set to any new targets before 2030. This is insane. This is insane, guys. I don't care where you stand on this. This is insane. You could be a anti-climate change person. You could be a climate change denier and see how stupid this is. Like, and this just feeds into that whole trend of people questioning government because you probably should, but then ending up with a crazy sort of like nonsensical approach. The obvious approach here is the Liberals are not going to put in any sort of restrictions because that'll hurt their donors and that'll hurt the companies that they get a lot of money from. Bombardier, SNC-Lavalin, a lot of these Quebec companies that Trudeau has very close ties to would be devastated by any major sort of change to the oil and gas industry in Canada. You have a state like California who basically said that we are not selling any more gasoline-powered cars after a certain date. Canada needs to go by this date, whether it's 2030 or 2035 or 2025, we need to say on this date you will no longer be allowed to sell gasoline-powered cars new from a dealership. That has to be in place. And if it's not, then we're just going to continue going around the circle until thousands upon thousands of people are just going to be dying from famine. And the problem is, and I understand that there's a group on the right who basically say that it's not really going to affect us, so therefore it doesn't matter. But we can look at what's happened on the East Coast and the Maritimes with the Micmac and the lobster fishing scenario. Fishing? Do you catch lobster or do you fish lobster? I think you catch lobster. The lobster catching scandal that went on. The Micmac First Nation or their peoples had to pay $1 billion. They had to pay $1 billion to buy out the rights to their own fishing land, because groups of capitalists who were just wanting to make money, they were burning down Micmac factories and storehouses. They were making it impossible for these people to live off the land like they've always lived off the land. That's disgusting. And the fact that the federal law enforcement top end, Bill Barr, Jesus, is that even right? Is that his name? I feel really dumb. Bill Barr. No, that's the US guy. Who's the it's not Bill Morneau. Justice Minister. Who's the Justice? No, not Manitoba, Canada. David Lametti? That's not who I was thinking of. Liberal cabinet. Who are the Liberal cabinet ministers? Bill, where are you, Bill? Bill Blair, my bad, Bill Blair. He's the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness. And he made terrible statements regarding what people should be doing out there. And luckily, we have the Green Party leader, Annamie Paul, finally coming out. And I mean, it's only been about a month since she's been declared leader. She has not won a seat. We're still waiting for that. But she finally was able to make a distinct public appearance and actually push back against the Liberals, which I was actually shocked that she did. Even though I probably shouldn't be, I was kind of shocked. So let's just watch this or listen to it. And
what we see in that is that there is no plan at all. There is no plan for getting us to net zero. There is very little accountability, and it's really just a game of smoke and mirrors. I was thinking today about what it was when I saw the plan that concerned me the most, and what occurred to me is that at a moment when we should already have had a plan in place to get to net zero by 2050, but to get to 60% reductions by 2030, there is no plan. There is only talk of accountability about a plan that will be developed at some future date. And so that is not what we expected. That is not what we need. And the Green Party of Canada is very disappointed to see key elements missing from this legislation. So first of all, we have seen that the government is proposing to have 2030 as the first date to set a new possible target for reducing greenhouse gases. And this target for 2030 will not be established until 6 to 9 months after the bill receives royal assent, which means that we could be looking at another year or year and a half before we have any new target. This is a failure because we had committed to increasing and had been asked by under the Paris Agreement and by the international community to increase our targets this year, and we have failed to do so. And this legislation makes it clear that we have no intention of increasing our target within this year, and perhaps even within the life of this parliament, because as we can see, this parliament is becoming more and more fragile. It's a minority government situation. It's entirely possible that within the life of this parliament, we will have no target that corresponds to the science. We also see that there is no target until 2030 and no plan to be put in place before 2030 either, which means that we're talking about another 10 years without any target that we can work toward. It means that we're talking about another 10 years before we know whether we are in fact doing what is necessary in order to ensure that we get to net zero. More than anything, I will say that I'm confused as to why the government yet again is passing up on the chance of a lifetime to put Canada, yes, on a path to net zero by 2050, but also to seize the greatest economic opportunity of our generation.
Yeah, so this is the first time that she's come out, and I've been like pumped that she came out and said something. This has actually restored some of my faith in the Green Party and Annamie Paul herself. This statement right here is what exactly we need a Green Party to do in Canada. And if we don't do this, if we don't push really, really, really hard, we're just gonna get the same thing we would get under conservatives as we get under liberals. I have hope. I don't think it's going to happen, but I have hope that the NDP and the Greens can come together on major issues like this and steal votes away from very fundamentally conservative or fundamentally liberal seats in the next election. I truly believe that if we position ourselves as the party or as the parties, that we're actually working for people, that we're doing things that people wanted them to do. Whether that's a wealth tax, whether that's CERB, whether that's potentially a basic income, whether that's climate change, whether that is stop funding Trans Mountain. These are all things that the vast majority of Canadians agree upon. And we have the political establishment to be able to push for those things. Unfortunately, if we look at our neighbors down south in the US, they don't have that position right now. There is no real third party. There is no third major party yet. And this is something that I take at least a little bit of solace in, is that we have established organizations in the NDP and the Green Party of Canada that can fight against these liberals, these conservatives, these fascists, these conspiracy theorists, these corporatists. We have the capability to actually take our cause, people's cause, against the government. And I have some hope that we will see a major change or some significant shift in that direction over the next 4 to 5 years. The question is it going to be too late? And for certain people in certain areas, it will be. It will not come in time. People will not get the help that they need in time. And that's terrible. And it saddens me. And, when we look at things like TMX and the climate emergency, we see a lot of people that are standing up to this. We have groups like Extinction Revolution. We have groups like 350 Canada. We have groups like Solidarity Winnipeg. We have groups like Canadian Labour. We have groups like the NDP. We have groups like the Green Party of Canada that can politically make these changes that we want to see in our country. I am finally going to just end this episode with a piece of positivity. I actually didn't pull it up before, but I feel like we've gotten a little bit too dark. Some good news for the people down south of the border. The Movement for a People's Party is moving forward. They had their vote on the official party name. That should be done. Yeah, it should be today. We are so excited to announce that we have an official party name. Thousands of you voted on a ranked choice ballot, and the choices are in. After 4 years of movement building, next month we will register on our first date as the People's Party. Hell yes. We will do everything we can to support them from here in Canada, because we truly need a leftist, socialist movement south of the border to potentially save any sort of democracy that America has left. People who are excited about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are not to be seen as friends. These are the same people that like Justin Trudeau and Bardish Chagar and Jane Philpott. Like, these are those people. These are those people that like the status quo with a little bit less racism. Not no racism, just a little bit less. And if we can move towards a truly People's Party in the United States, and me as an American, I will be involved in this. You can be damn sure of that. There is a chance. There is a chance that things can change. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, but there is a chance that things can change. One final note that I just want to put out there, that I have moved away from Medium as my writing and publishing platform, and I have moved to Substack. You can check me out on Substack at micahdewy.substack.com. You can look at any of my new articles, and the newest one that I have posted is called Jesus, Anarchy, and Suicide: The Death of Ivan Illich. It's a very interesting story by Leo Tolstoy, and has correlations between like the 1880s pre-revolution Russia and 21st century modern day materialistic celebrity worship, and how politics and religion and mental health all kind of combine into one situation. And something that I did leave out of this article that I do believe is that the same situation that allowed for the Russian Revolution, that allowed for overturning the status quo, and I'm not saying we should have a violent revolution, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying the material conditions that existed in 1880s, 1890s Russia are shockingly similar to North America in 2020. Shockingly similar. And we are one George Floyd or riot or major decision away from potentially seeing the worst of the worst. I am very happy so far that Donald Trump's court cases have been basically thrown out without merit, and oftentimes with prejudice. And despite everybody saying now that it is 100% over, I still have this weird feeling in my stomach that makes me say, yeah, it's over officially. And yes, the courts have made their decisions. But that doesn't mean those people all disappear that voted for Donald Trump. That doesn't mean that these QAnon conspiracy theorists go away. They don't. They still exist and they will still be there. The question is, what are we going to do about that? What happens with these people? Luckily in Canada, we have a smaller percentage of those kinds of people. Based on a few surveys and polls, we could put the crazy right-wing fascists in a group of about 20% in Canada, 18 to 20%, based on different statistical analysis. Based on if the presidential election was in Canada, who would you vote for? Went like 81-18 Biden to Trump. Do you support X, Y, or Z? Those are normally in that like 80-20 range. And so I'm worried, but I'm less worried now than I was 2 weeks ago. And I still stand behind my vote for Howie Hawkins, even though, as we all know and as we all knew at the time, it wasn't going to make a difference. I am looking forward to a People's Party for actually having a potential candidate and challenge in 2024. Hopefully they will be able to run candidates in 2022 in House seats and Senate seats. Hopefully there will be enough of a movement for that People's Party that will actually establish a decent voting bloc. I think if they could get 10%, 15%, that would be massive. But I'm not sure if that's going to happen yet. So I'm hopeful, but I don't know if it's going to be the way that we want it to. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Green Revolution with Micah Dewey. If you liked it, please be sure to subscribe on Apple iTunes and on Spotify. You can follow me on Twitter at X5ofspades, and make sure to check out Patreon and Substack. Substack I am running at free right now, but if you want to subscribe on Substack, you can. And same goes for Patreon. We've got paid content and free content. Just let me know what you think. I'm looking for potential guests for this program in the future. And so if you know anybody, or if you think you know anybody that could be fun to talk to on this kind of a, mid to long-term podcast, let me know. So again, you can send me an email at micahdewy.writer@gmail.com if you have any comments, suggestions, guest requests, story requests. Just let me know. Until next time, guys, have a great day. Stay safe, wear masks, and solidarity with everyone. Peace.